Greetings. Yes, greetings to all the caravanners around the world and caravanners yet to be. From the headwaters of the Nile to the Great Pyramid at Giza, to the ruins at Angkor Wat and those at Chichen Itza, to the obelisk in D.C., to the Kremlin, and then a little further west to the melted fuel pools at Fukushima. We welcome you. This is Caravan to Midnight, the John B. Wells program. On this episode, we will visit once again with she known as DJ, Delta Juliet, Ms. Jade Helm. You know, she is a very nice lady as well as being a very intelligent one. And she has, in my opinion, she is a slightly, as one might call oneself, a reluctant dragon. I really didn't want to blow those flames all over the villagers, you know, that thing. She's, in my opinion, a slightly reluctant jungle cat. She doesn't really want to sink those fangs in. She really doesn't want to use those mighty claws. She is, in my opinion, a real no-kidding warrior priestess, and has gone way out on the clothesline to bring information that, frankly, I haven't heard anywhere else. So there is more to be learned about Jade Helm and some of the outrageous, shall we say, derivative applications of this artificial intelligence apparatus that, for all intent and purpose, is being deployed now. So, forewarned is forearmed, and there is no better defense against those things which need to be defended against than knowledge. That is why we are here. Kudos to our friends in Greece. I know it's been a rough haul. I've been to Greece. It's a fascinating society. It's a fascinating civilization. Do you know, 20 years ago when I went there for the first time, in Athens, they were so despondent because there had been 8 murders in a year in Athens. 8. Now these murders were, shootouts among drug dealers, with the exception of one. But they felt as though their civilization must be collapsing to have 8 confirmed murders in a year in Athens. Contrast that with Detroit, Philly, D.C., Oakland, Chicago. Pick one. By the way, speaking of Chicago, Puto, that's our president under title only. Oh, he's admitted that, yeah, some of the immigrants who are coming over really are violent gang members. Thanks, Prez, for telling us something that we already knew. Oh, here's another one. In illegal kills in San Francisco. He was deported 5 times from that glorious sanctuary city before he decided to just kill a woman in her 30s. Just kill her. No big deal. Another one here, an illegal confesses to murdering his wife with a hammer in Texas. He was deported 4 times. There are 110,000 African immigrants just in Minnesota. I wonder how they will respond to snow, because Minnesota definitely gets some of that. It's really strange as these, back to the Greeks. I congratulate you on your courage. I, and many of us, so I'll say we, admire you for telling the European Union to go jump in the lake. That you would rather live in austerity and dignity than take their bribes and be pulled ever deeper into their apparatus, which is a failure. The Eurozone is no United States of America, and it never will be. Oh, they've wanted this for a long time, but it's just not happening. Nigel Farage says the European Union is dying before our eyes. Despite the scaremongering and bullying from those in Brussels, we are waking today with Greece having delivered a resounding no. That comes despite EU bosses saying it would mean a Greek exit from the euro, not to mention the heavy economic pressure placed on the Greek people to go along with the wishes of Brussels. It is a crushing defeat for those Eurocrats who believe that you can simply bulldoze public opinion. We could take a lesson, take heart, and take courage from what the Greeks have done. Greece, the very seat of civilization. I admire these people. Going back to Mr. Farage's article here at telegraph.co.uk. Chief bully boy Martin Schulz, president of the European Parliament, and other supposed leaders to the European Union did their best to terrify the Greek people into submitting to the wishes of the European Union, but they utterly failed. The fear espoused by the Yes campaign was rejected. Opinion polls that put the Yes side ahead just days before were way out, as thousands upon thousands of Greek citizens lined the streets chanting no in Greek, which is spelled O-X-I. Can't be oxy. That's what we yell over here. Hey, anybody got a couple of oxys? I've run out of painkillers. 10% of the population of the world, and we're taking 50% of the drugs, really? And by the way, our friends at Al Jazeera decided to mock us. A 4th of July video mocking Americans as fat, gun-toting, pill-popping, porn-watching racists. Yeah, Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera's digital media platform, AJ+, posted a 4th of July themed video mocking Americans as fat, cheese-eating, gun-toting, pill-popping, racist porn watchers. While some on social media applauded the creation, others slammed the Qatar-owned network for using the holiday to dump on America. Social media users got particularly riled up by the criticism coming from the channel owned by Qatar, a country where stoning is legal punishment under Sharia law. Kill, stone, rape, got, make the blood spill. We're savages and should be annihilated. I added that part. The video is sarcastically titled, Americans Show Why USA is the #1 country in the world. Well, pew, pew, we've got 90 guns per 100 persons. Sorry, Yemen, we beat you in drones and guns, said one of the actors. Americans consume 80% of the world's painkillers. Makes sense, though, right? I mean, racism in this country is a big pain in the ass, said a female actor. By the way, there's no such thing as a female actor. They're actresses. For all you politically people out there here, do you know what this means? Huh? You know what that means? That's for you. Anyway, back to Farage's article for just a second. The result is a tired, stumbling European Union that is dying on its feet before our very eyes. Credibility for the project is fading fast as citizens right across Europe awaken to the reality of its authoritarian instincts that seek to run roughshod over public opinion. Wow, it sounds just like Washington, D.C., doesn't it? In the meantime, this idiot woman, Federica Mogherini's remarks at Call to Europe 5, Islam in Europe. The idea of a clash between Islam and the West, a word in which everything is put together and confused, has misled our policies and our narratives. Islam holds a place in our Western societies. Islam belongs in Europe. It holds a place in Europe's history, in our culture, in our food, and what matters most, in Europe's present and future. You need to get yourself a better speechwriter, honey. Some people are now trying to convince us that a Muslim cannot be a good European citizen, that more Muslims in Europe will be the end of Europe. These people are not just mistaken about Muslims. These people are mistaken about Europe. They have no clue what Europe and the European identity are. The so-called Islamic State is putting forward an unprecedented attempt to pervert Islam for justifying a wicked political and strategic project. Daesh is Islam's worst enemy in today's world. Its victims are first and foremost Muslim people. Islam is a victim itself. I am not afraid to say that political Islam should be part of the culture. Religion plays a role in politics, not always for good, not always for bad. Religion can be part of the process. What makes the difference is whether the process is democratic or not. You're an idiot. And how you ever got a forum where you could say anything is amazing. I'm sorry I used the word idiot. I'm sorry if it offended you. I'm not sorry for using it. Yes. She's the Foreign Affairs and Security Chief. Islam is a victim. Political Islam should be part of the picture in Europe. And, of course, the woman looks insane. That could be just a, anybody can look insane if you catch them at just the right moment with the camera, but she looks insane. Looks insane. I'm sorry. Remember when right after 9/11, this guy wrote a song called "You're Saddam Insane"? Well, that was a good bit of flag waving. Too bad it was our, in my opinion, our own people that set the whole bloody thing up. And it was bloody, was it not? All right, well, look, there's plenty more. NASCAR was defiant. They're flying flags, rebel flags anyway. And hats off to them as well. It's just a flag. Get over it. Stand by.
From the mothership that is Caravan to Midnight, you're listening to the John B. Wells Program.
All right, I'll tell you what. This is it's a real pleasure. It's a privilege. It's an honor. It's illuminating. It's enlightening, and it's a little bit scary, but not too scary, because once you know what you're dealing with, well, things tend to get a little bit less scary as you learn more. We welcome back to the program the singular warrior priestess, known only as DJ Delta Juliet. Welcome back, DJ. It's good to have you. Thanks for making time for us here on this beautiful Monday, this post-Independence Day Monday. How was everything? Did you have a good weekend, I hope?
Yes, we did, and thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's nothing quite like watching stuff blow up, given the context of the world that we live in. It's sort of like, this is fun, but okay, I've seen 2 or 3 explosions. I think I'm going to take it back to the couch, As Dean Martin used to say, I'm going to leave you now. I'm going to the couch, that thing. So anyway, your report on Caravan, and then the sharing with other outlets, which of course I'm delighted to do this, because as far as I'm concerned, the more people know about it, the better. I'm a credit the proper sources kind of guy. Do you know how many hits we got on the YouTube channel? It's over 80,000. And that's just the last time I looked, which was a few days ago. So
well, that's good. Then the information's getting out there.
Oh yes, it is. And it's what's amazing to me is that people are not in the what's going to happen. They're not in that mode now. They're in the all right. I've had just about enough of this, and this is obviously serious. It's not conspiracy theory or anything of the sort. There is stuff going on that's very, very serious, and it concerns everybody, and people are getting really focused, really calm, which is good. As Master say, a good dog doesn't bark, good dog only bite, and I think people are getting into the good dog mode. So I feel pretty sure that since we talked 3-4 weeks ago, first time, and I'm just wondering what has transpired since. What have you What have you uncovered now?
Well, in light of the subject matter that we discussed in the episode 309, where we went over all the stuff in the report for GeoINT and J2 on the global information grid,
Yep.
I made it a point to get as much information as I could regarding the Bilderberg meetings. When did they end? On the 8th or the 11th? And also on the GeoINT, the 2015 GeoINT Symposium that just ended June, I think it was June 25th. I don't have the date right in front of me, but I wanted to see, where these think tanks are going with relation to this, well, let's call it beast tech that they're running behind the scenes. So the first thing, if you don't mind, I'd like to cover just some very brief highlights in Bilderberg.
Please.
Okay. And the attendees for the June 2015 Bilderberg meeting included, the usual suspects, but I want to go over some of the prime architects for the design and development of global governance. And you could go to the website and check out the attendee list. I think I sent you a link for that.
Yep.
All right. Now, the steering committee includes Peter Thiel. Now, here he is, in a suit. He's the co-founder of, he's the co-founder and major investor in Facebook, but also the founder of PayPal. And then next, which is, I think if you go to slide 4, we have Eric Schmidt, the executive chairman for Google.
Yeah, there he is.
Okay. And then we have a relatively not too prominent guy in here called Ken Jacobs. Okay. He's with Lazard. Now, who or what is Lazard? Lazard was founded in the 1800s, 1848, I believe, and has initially been focused on financial and asset management. Lazard is a multinational concern in 43 cities across 27 countries and is now branched off into other areas, specializing in energy, media, and communications technology. So kind of like off the beaten track, their main product line, which is financial management, they're now branching out into these other areas. Why? We're going to find out. If I can read you in a press release dated September 18th, 2014, Lazard stated in its, quote, new levelized cost of energy analysis, end quote, large-scale conventional generation projects such as IGCC, which is integrated gasification combined cycles, or nuclear power, continue to face a number of challenges, including high absolute costs, significant cost contingencies, competition from natural gas in many parts of the world, and policy uncertainty. Notwithstanding these issues, alternative energy sources will not be capable of meeting the base load generation needs of an advanced economy for the foreseeable future. Now, Lazard's global power, energy, and infrastructure group serves private and public sector clients with advisory services regarding mergers and acquisitions, financing, and other strategic matters. The group is active in all areas of the traditional and alternative energy industries, including regulated utilities, independent power producers, advanced transportation technologies, and renewable energy technologies, power metering and monitoring, smart grid, and energy efficient technologies and infrastructure. Now let me stop here because, before we get into the rest of this stuff, I just want to say that this sounds a lot like, to me, that they may be headed towards global energy rationing in order to levelize, as they put it, costs to these privatized energy corporations to increase profits.
Great, good gig if you can get it, yeah?
Yeah. Okay, now the next slide that we have here on the cover of Forbes magazine is Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir, a CIA-funded data mining giant. What do they specialize in? Defense. Now, quote, I'm going to read you a quote from their little blurb at Bilderberg. From strategy to operations to tactics, from reach-back facilities to the tactical edge of the battlefield, Palantir Defense gives the warfighter immediate access to the latest critical information, removing the technical barriers to better data-driven decision-making, end quote. And they were also an attendee at the 2015 GeoINT conference, which ended on June 25th of this year. Now, these are some of the capabilities that they boast. Transform massive scale data from multiple intelligence disciplines into an actionable insight. This is predictive reaction and response from ABI, as well as other forms of data being collected on the human terrain to master the human domain. Next, synchronize data for collaborative analysis and improve situational awareness at every echelon. Now, this is total command and control, the mastering of all domains. Land, sea, space, cyberspace. This also goes to Jade 2's Prodigy battle planning module. Next, push the latest data and advanced analytics to the tactical edge of the battlefield. Quote, Palantir Defense's global knowledge management capabilities track every read, write, and edit function, preserving the accumulated knowledge of the battle space, end quote. Now, this goes directly to the CBR, the case-based reasoning module of GeoINT, which produces the ACOA, or the adapted course of action, to be employed in a military action or in a civilian operation area. Next, fuse intel, operations, and other functions into a single mission command system. This is C2, or total command and control. Field capability that works today at scale and at war. The at scale they're referring to is global.
Oh boy. You know, when you look at this stuff, I mean, I don't know. Is it? Do you get the sense that it's a defensive, just a defensive awareness, or is it subtle offensive control of an insidious nature that will just wind up being there without any official declaration of any kind of an action?
The latter.
Mm-hmm.
The latter. And as we get into more of some of the information we'll be talking about, I think that will become very obvious to your audience.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if we move over to the GeoINT 2015 USGIF GeoINT 2015 Symposium. Here, I did read the entire final report, which is, I don't know, 30 or 40 pages, I think. But I read it twice. And I made notes, and I want to just go over for your listeners some of the key points in here without doing a lot of reading from the report. I just kind of, want to go down some of my observations. All right.
The forum is yours. You just run it the way you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
One quote that I do want to read, I just said I wasn't going to do this, but I don't have page numbers on this, so I can't give you the exact page. It says, quote, "We have spent more than a year developing a GeoINT essential body of knowledge with practitioner contributions from defense, law enforcement, U.S. intelligence, as well as from first responder." Now get this, this is new. I have not seen this in past GeoINT reports. Agriculture, oil and gas, mining, and mineral extraction, and broader business communities. Now, so this initiative then has extended from government and military to the energy and corporate sectors, including food production. So, another common thread that was going through this final report was that in addition to the massive data collection, they acknowledge we are voluntarily giving them more information to populate the databases that will drive this system. And they know this. And as a matter of fact, further on, it becomes more of a joke to them. This part here. Okay, increasingly, we also have geolocated social media and GPS-enabled information. Now.
Now, it always come back to the same question. Now, why would they want an apparatus like that? And the question, what's so strange about this to me, and I don't want to get too far afield here, but all this emphasis on surveillance with wide open borders, this makes no sense to me.
Well, they don't care about borders, I don't think. And, my trying to figure out how their minds work, I don't think they could care less about borders, national sovereignty, nation states, any of that. Because, as we mentioned before, their goal is to have total command and control or master the human domain over 7 billion people on the planet. And with all the geolocation sensors and devices they have, it doesn't matter where they are, and I don't think they care.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Here it says there are obvious trends that are noticeably absent from this volume, including the rise of small satellites and unmanned aerial systems as sensor platforms, and how analytically we can handle the current crush of available data. Now, this addresses another aspect of this beast tech that relates to cube satellites for human exploration and operations. These are extremely small, low orbit satellites. They weigh, in many cases, they weigh under 200 pounds. Now, the other organization that we should be keeping an eye on is SpaceX and Elon Musk's agenda, to launch microsatellites to create a space web
Yes.
of data collectors
Mm-hmm.
and transmitters. Now, in November of last year alone, he launched 66 of these microsatellites.
Do we know who's putting them up there?
SpaceX is one of the companies, and I believe that's Elon Musk.
Yeah, but I mean, that they
Endeavor.
actually have their own lift systems. They can loft them up there themselves.
Ooh, I'm not sure if they have that capability or they're contracting that out to someone else, but these are very, very small payloads compared to a lot of the communications and other types of satellites that are up there now.
Mm-hmm.
These are very small payloads, so they can conceivably launch more than one at a time.
Yeah.
Probably several.
Okay.
All right.
I'll tell you. These guys just never give up. The girls who work with them, they don't give up either.
Yeah. It is estimated that, and this is coming directly from the report, it's estimated that roughly, get this, 1 hour of video footage, much of it geotagged, is uploaded every second to the global information grid. During that same second, 46,000 Google searches are launched. And as worldwide information flow became real-time and ubiquitous, print media, including monthly news vehicles, became less and less prevalent as far as a source for getting information. Now, in the previous report, we outlined how they will geolocate every piece of information to a place or a human network node on the planet. And this is one of the methods that they will formulate the boundaries and the interrelationships of every human node on the edge network. The aspect of this whole beast that we talked about, how the edge of your node kind of touches the edge of somebody else's node, and then the edge and the edge to somebody else to somebody else. This is how they'll be mapping the human domain.
All right. Now, for people who are new to the program and for people who are listening to it in its condensed and delayed broadcast form, just to get the word out, and I repeat, folks, we don't place any advertising on any of that condensed stuff at all, not at all. And people call us. We don't push it at the stations. But bring us back around to the node factor, and just tell everybody one more time the human node.
Well, what the GeoINT system is ultimately set up to do, it's a complete and all-encompassing data collection, network-centric AI at the core computer system that sits on the global information grid. Now, what they're attempting to do, and they're well on their way, is reducing every person on the planet to the sum total of the data collected on them. Once they are able to do that, once they're able to geolocate all of the data on the planet and tie it back to a node or a particular human being, this is the human node aspect of it. You, me, everybody listening will become a human node on the global information grid. This is total command and control.
I don't want to be a node.
I know, I don't either.
I am not a node. I am a person. Is that thing?
Okay. Fully integrating the real-time flow of publicly available and searchable information into the intelligent community's analytical realm ultimately means changing the overall system architecture to perform integrated tasking. Ingest, and the spelling in this thing is terrible, so is the grammar. Processing, correlation, enrichment, change detection, altering, and analytics of both classified and unclassified sources. This is, again, to the question you just asked, this is mapping the human domain. It goes on to say, but moving in this direction will require a significant mindset shift that recognizes openly available information as holding value equal to traditional classified sources. This goes to the data neutrality that we discussed in episode 309. Whoops, apologies here. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency has a history and tradition of incorporating openly available, unclassified, and commodity data into its product lines. For decades, it has entered into, let me see, government to government and government to commercial agreements for unclassified, this is common data, private data, geospatial data sets, including commodity purchases of location data. So they're selling our information back and forth to each other. Now, government to government and government, I should say government to corporate collaboration goes to fascism in a global totalitarian state.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So. Okay.
Now, at this point, I think I should ask, even though the answer may be obvious to many, how far along are they? I mean, is this still on their wish list, or is this like already built and now they're just sort of, are they beginning to turn it on now?
In my humble opinion, we're running out of time.
Well, DJ, while you assemble some more stuff, let's just chat here for a second about once they do this, and I know you don't know, but just based on your intuition and your imagination and your knowledge of what they've done in the past, can you just give us an idea of what your opinion, if you're running the movie, you're the director, you're the producer, you're doing it all, what will life look like for people? You wake up in the morning and this apparatus is all rolled out and fully functional. What does that actually mean to the individual human being, or what's left of it at that point?
You become inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Work, buy, consume, die. It's all they care about. And I think that's where they're going with this. This is not, this technology, and just even in the realm of the capabilities that they're willing to disclose publicly, is not to benefit humanity. I mean, that to me is obvious. This is not a benevolent endeavor. This is not to bring food to the starving, to end war on the planet, to eliminate social strife or any of this. This is total command and control. Total command and control is slavery.
Okay. Well, that pretty much puts it in focus, doesn't it? So I take it that the next step is going to be work units or work credits.
Yeah, production capabilities and categories is where I see this going. Do you produce? How much do you produce compared to how much do you consume?
Now, let me ask you this. This may not be your thing, and if it's not, we don't have to pursue it. It's just, I'm wondering, you know, with this Trans-Pacific Partnership and all these related treaties and so forth, these so-called agreements, which aren't agreements really at all, they're treaties. It seems to me that they have globalized the workforce. And whoever is the lowest bidder is going to get the job. It's like the Chinese building stuff. I mean, they build right up here in Dallas, Texas. The Chinese built this huge highway project here. Who'd have thunk it? And then they're building the bullet train down in Mexico. I want to say it runs between Mexico City and Monterrey. I might be wrong, but it's about a 220-mile long stretch, and they're building that. And I'm thinking, okay, so once everybody gets pulled into this big system, it's not a question of American workers or German workers or anything. Whoever can do the job for the least amount of money, it's one big global labor pool. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking, between a global labor pool, a global currency, and a global government, that pretty much does it, doesn't it? That just kind of wraps it all up into one neat little package.
Yes, and the people who are pushing this and funding this are the proponents of global government. Now, if you have global government that's controlled by an AI-based system that sits on a global grid, remember we talked about the J2 system, how the mission planning and how the system starts getting its own ball rolling is through the receipt of a mission statement. Well, if that mission statement is then a global political governance statement or a global political statement, this system will roll that ball on its own. That will be its mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Well,
okay.
You just carry on, my dear. No worries.
All right. The NGA is uniquely positioned to lead the intelligence community to seamless integration of open sources for additional reasons. More and more of the billions of images and millions of videos being uploaded to the web are geo-referenced, and a growing number of smartphones and other handheld devices now provide location information. Then there's the NGA's role in the glue that puts other INTs or intelligences into perspective. It's often said that GeoINT is the foundation that provides the context for all other intelligence sources. Now, this goes to the contextual data we referenced regarding the ABI's aspect of the human domain breakdown. This context building role made NGA the champion for multi-in or multi-intelligent efforts across the IC or intelligence community, and is still the reason NGA plays a central role in persistent surveillance, activity-based intelligence, and intelligence community information technology enterprise transformation. Now, global data collection is not being curtailed. It's being accelerated, as stated in this final report, on every level. The context building role that they're talking about here goes to the HTA tools being used to transform human beings into nodes on a GIG. As far as this network-centric artificial intelligence system is concerned, like we just mentioned before, you're going to be reduced to the sum total of the data collected on you, and that is the end game in the quest to control 7 billion people on the planet, mastering the human domain. Now, okay, outside the confines and restrictions of heavily guarded SCIFs, which are sensitive compartmented information/intelligence facilities, like the Massive Data Collection Center in Bluffdale, Utah, the world's real-time information flow has eclipsed anyone's imagination. As intelligence professionals, we must seek knowledge from any source and provide our customers with insightful analysis that incorporates a healthy awareness of our adversaries' denial and deception capabilities in the open source and multi-in environments. To be truly effective, multi-in persistent surveillance and ABI must rely on real-time flow of all sources of information, including that which is openly available. These driving initiatives and convergence of the heretofore stovepipe IT architectures into ITE provide the needed push to change our culture and systems architecture. Now, they're connecting everything. Their customers are the proponents of global governance, military and global intelligence organizations. Their adversaries appear to be the unbridled masses of humanity. I mean, if you look at it now, I mean, just look at the way the United States government and police and military are treating American citizens. We're being treated as hostiles, terrorists, undesirables, you know, people that need to be kept in line. So they
Of course.
they don't want the unbridled masses turning against them.
Well, particularly the young people, just like with this deal in Greece, the yes, we're going to stay with the European Union. That was going, that position was in the lead for a while, but then the young people started voting and they went, no. And so now, gosh, this is just getting more complicated by the day.
I was very happy to hear that Greek decision early this morning. I mean, I thought for sure it's going to be like a 51-49 vote. You know, just missed it, just like the elections here.
Yeah.
Oh, they
turned out it
just
was like
missed.
61-39.
Oh, wow. That's a much bigger margin than I would have expected.
Oh, yeah, it was huge. But the problem is now they're going to be worried now about Russia stepping in to help them. So it's going to get really stupid over the next few weeks, I suspect.
Well, not only that, but Greece, I think the major banks and these financial institutions around the world are holding something like 3 or 4 trillion in derivatives on the Greece default,
Yeah.
the Grexit.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna start calling those, and then what's gonna happen? I mean, I don't know anybody with $4 trillion that can pay that.
You're going to need a lot of boxcars to move that sort of dough around, you know?
Exactly. Okay, now
Trillions of
going
dollars.
on, and I'll try and get through this as fast as I can.
No problem.
Spatial content mined for social media has been an information treasure trove for marketers and observers of social unrest in North Africa, the Middle East, and Hong Kong. Geospatial crowdsourcing is the most recent innovation where statistical techniques are used to validate the crowd. Or on one level, this could be termed gang stalking. Okay, from the perspective of intelligence and law enforcement agencies and corporations which use organized stalking as a secret and a legal weapon for subversion, the perfect operation in this type of technical crowdsourcing, or on another level, gang stalking, the target becomes progressively isolated, impoverished, and emotionally degraded, and eventually seeks what appears to be the only available outlet: suicide. Now, remember I mentioned before how they're kind of laughing at us, we the people, in this conference paper. You know, they're just giving us so much information, we couldn't possibly hope to mine this without their voluntary, you know, uploading of all their personal stuff for us to create, you know, use the human terrain tools to create a human geography. It goes on to say, if collection labor is volunteered, why not collect many times? Compare the results and statistically select the most frequent answers. Certainly, a large enough section of the population over every point on the earth, you could expect great data quality, but we're not there yet. Yeah, they're on their way. And this is why I think time is running out.
And they have, and you're absolutely convinced that they have the systems that can handle this, the influx of this much data.
Yeah, they can't do it with conventional computing, as we discussed before in episode 309. They can do it with quantum computers. They can. And there's no doubt. As a matter of fact, with quantum computing, the more data you pump into a quantum computer, the better analysis you get back, which is, common sense, but the faster it can return the results. Also, I know that seems bizarre in the way that our monkey minds are trained to think, but that's how they work. Now, it goes on to say that no discussion of the value of social media and crowdsourced data would be complete without acknowledging the risk of geospoofing. Could the crowd intentionally provide bad content in volumes significant enough to be credible, they ask? Would a bad actor promulgate bad location through Twitter in significant enough numbers to cause analysts to be misled? It would be naive to dismiss this risk, they acknowledge. The current risk is not sufficient, though, they say, to avoid using social media and crowdsourced data, but continued vigilance is strongly encouraged. Now, here's a chink in their armor for the geolocating of everything on the planet. Geospoofing is difficult for the average person to do. So I would propose if enough free open source developers could create an app for this that could be downloaded to either a mobile or a fixed device, then we may be able on great enough levels to mislead their analysis and spoof the data being used in the HTA tool, especially regarding activity-based intelligence. So there's a challenge for some of these app writers out there that go on Google Play and stuff.
No, let me ask you this. The military, when we say they, who are they? Who's going to be doing the actual operating? Because it's beginning to look like one of the reasons that the military, the size is being drawn down, and it is because it's not necessary to have that many people anymore. Do you find that to be is that based on anything that you've researched? Does that sound plausible?
Absolutely.
Oh, it does?
Oh, absolutely. This is why they're talking about reducing the number of boots on the ground, the elimination of high-ranking military brass. And I think that the reason why they're being eliminated is they don't want any outside interference from the calls and decisions that the computer system, or in the case of the military, the JADE-2 system, is going to be making as far as battle plan calls. They don't want the human interference element.
Yeah, they don't want any rogue platoons, as it might be. So what we're looking at,
countermanding of orders,
right? So basically, the whole battlefield is going automated, and a bunch of shots can be called from one central command and control location, and these outrageously powerful computers will execute this, and there will be no human being that can get in the way to stop it.
Right. The system will communicate the orders out to the mechanized units on the field. Mechanized, whether we're talking about tanks or missile systems, ground-based missiles, even air and space-based missile systems. The system will execute the commands therein. That's
okay.
Pretty much what I've gotten out of all the stuff I've been through so far. Now, here's an outline of how the U.S. government could launch a pilot program. And this is JADE-2, okay? And this is how JADE-2 is being launched behind the scenes, behind the curtain, what everybody's not seeing, what nobody's talking about. First bullet point, identify a small to mid-sized country where there is enough interest or committed resources to GeoINT to warrant a pilot program. Afghanistan, Iraq, or Iran might be good choices. The Southwest U.S., where the Jade Helm 15 exercises are being conducted, also fits that bill. Next bullet point, complete a country-level vector and imagery database with the most accurate and current data available. The decisions here should not be onerous, as omissions can be recovered in the maintenance process. There are sufficient standards and GIS technology in place to get started. This is absolutely true of the US, probably even more so than in the Middle Eastern countries they mentioned. Dedicate a team of maintainers, starting with 20 to 30, dropping down to 5 or 10 in a year. Include developers on the team and adopt agile methods to rapidly update processes. Also include a social media mining expert. Why would they need that?
I don't know.
Okay, next point. Organize in an operations center environment. The term needs to be, the team needs to be fixated on maintaining the most current and comprehensive operational picture possible. Now, you remember how everybody was talking about how Colorado opted out of the Jane Helm exercise, and I think I mentioned to you, if not to you, I know I mentioned it in a couple of my reports, that I had found on Army.mil a press release that was released by one of the commanders at, I believe it was Fort Collins, and it was the military that opted out, not the governor of the state of Colorado, citing that they didn't have the manpower resources to allocate to this exercise. How much you want to bet that this thing is being centralized in Colorado?
Makes perfect sense. It really does. Yeah, I would be all in on that. Absolutely.
You know, otherwise, I mean, there is a lot of military personnel at Colorado Springs and the other military bases. The Air Force Base, I think it is up there too. I mean, when you're talking about a Jade Helm 15 exercise that's only going to include 12 to 1,600 boots on the ground, I mean, you can't spare 300 people. Nah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay. The next bullet point, there's only 2 more here, but I just want to point out how these are paralleling to what's going on right now today. Okay, it says use change detection techniques to target areas for tasking in the broadest sense, including new imagery, perhaps targeted crowdsourcing again through a commercial provider or through social media mining. Last bullet, develop internal community sourcing. The DoD and IC, or intelligence community, have a wealth of local knowledge. Enlist a crowdsourcing entity to help develop our crowd into our community. Now, this crowdsourcing entity, I believe, ties back to the references I made in my report on Executive Order 13684 and Obama's 1033 program, as well as other documentation, you know, we discussed previously, referencing community organizers. Okay.
Wow.
And they're using all these social tools, these, you know, division and separate organizations that they have out there, religion against religion, sex against sex, you know,
Sure.
income strata against income strata. They've created these pockets already, and they have the community organizers within those pockets that they can now depend on to herd the crowd in one direction or another. So
I just wonder, well, I don't know. It seems like in the same way that I mean, when Einstein said a nuclear reactor, it's a hell of a way to boil water. It's almost like this is a hell of a way to control a what? I mean, what do you think is the primary target of the control? The economy, the actual human being? I mean, human behavior. I mean, what is the big control objective? And if they do control everything, I mean, everything, then how much productivity do they think they're really going to get out of people?
Well, if you want to live, you're going to comply. And that's the major message I would like to get out there is do not comply. Do not acquiesce to this. Fight it on every level, because once they throw that proverbial switch in the sky, it's over. I mean, your banking, your communications, your ability to earn a living, your ability to thrive and survive. I know a lot of people talk about, the mark of the beast, and they're going to put a microchip to control everybody. If you don't have that mark, you're finished. I believe, this is the mark of the beast, this thing.
And one more time, who do you really believe is behind this? I mean, who is it? Is this the Bilderberg crew? Because I get the sense that, yeah, there are some important cats sitting around those tables, but those are just the ones that we see. Now, I don't want to inject some imaginary component here. It's like, the ones that really run it, you'll never see them, you'll never know their names, but I suspect that is true. I don't know that it is, but I'm thinking that this Bilderberg, these are just the faces that we see. The ones who are actually pulling the strings, we have no idea who they are. I mean, is that too far-fetched, or do we pretty much think it's the Bilderbergs, and there they are, there's their picture in their bathrobes?
No, I think it's a hierarchical pyramid structure, and I think the ones at the very capstone of that structure, we don't know who they are. Okay. And just to go to that, I did some digging on Bilderberg, and they had a link in there for advisory council to Bilderberg, and I was like, oh, great, we'll get some names, who's advising these people. There was one member on that council, Nelson Rockefeller.
Oh, there you go, perfect. Mm-hmm. Nelson?
That's a council. I think it was Nelson Rockefeller.
Got to be David. And one more time, when was this? When was this information with his name on it made available?
On the 2015 Bilderberg Agenda release. Oh. There was a link in there somewhere.
I don't even think Nelson's alive anymore. It's got to be David.
And then it has to be David, and my mistake. But
no, it's all right. Don't. I'm looking right now. That's how it is in this kind of work. You cannot. Yeah, he's been dead for 36 years. He died in 79, so it's David. But I get you. I just want to make sure that everything's out in the open, because people will. The problem is that anything that we say that's the least bit off is gonna be prejudicial to our talk. The same way a typographical error, is prejudicial toward the content of the article. You know what I mean? So I'm not nitpicking.
Understood. I shouldn't have commented without having the information right in front of me.
No big deal. I'm not calling you out on it, sweetie. I'm just I got your back here. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Now, the ICITE, which is the Intelligence Community and Technological Enterprise, seeks to provide improved integration, information sharing, and security through the use of a cloud-based architecture. So we know this system will be predicated on a cloud-based architecture. What this basically means is they will not be putting all their eggs in one basket like the Bluffdale data center. They'll be storing our data over a distributed network. So, yeah. I mean, and plus, if they're using all these clouds, to seed a lot of their data storage in a walled-off section of those server farms, you better believe they have the technology to read and collect everything being stored in those clouds as well. That's my humble opinion, anyway. There is nothing sacrosanct to these people.
No, probably never has been, other than their bank accounts, of course.
Mm-hmm. And, okay. And I apologize. This document is just very, very cumbersome to go through. Oh, let me read you one of the biggest propaganda statements I found so far on this GeoINT.
Okay.
Okay. Quote, this ever-evolving computer power eases many concerns about big data. It is often forgotten that storage, compute, and transferabilities have all kept pace with the size of data at any given point in time and are likely to do so in the future. The ability exists to store vast quantities of data, process them in an efficient manner, recall them when necessary, and move them quickly from place to place. With decreasing costs and increasing simplicity, capability, and performance, small communities of, get this, citizen analysts can form into crowds and, in aggregate, amass technical capabilities on par with large-scale data. Hold on. Large-scale data crowds, with the only confines of these crowds only being bound by law and their own morality. Such crowds can be more agile, respond to change, and even form, grow, split, or disband as needed. Really?
What does that mean?
I mean,
Is that like
what?
KGB informant level stuff?
No, that's like what they're putting out there is that, oh, there's a lot of concerns about this big data collection, but we're gonna, it's possible down the road that you little people can go out there and access this too, to find ways to address and solve problems in your community, nation, group, whatever. Because of course, everybody's going to have access to this. No, they're not, because this statement flies in the face of the TPP and in the face of net neutrality. They aren't going to put this technology in the hands of humanity to solve our problems. I mean, if you have any doubt on that aspect of it, do you remember a guy by the name of John Hutchinson?
I remember the name, yeah. I don't.
Okay. He was working with Tesla technology.
Yeah.
And he was conducting experiments on free energy and directed energy.
Oh, yes.
The feds found out about this. They raided his home, confiscated his equipment and his research, and locked him up. And this wasn't too long ago. So now we're doing a 180 from there and saying, oh, this is going to be available to everybody. And don't fear the data collection, because we're all going to share in the fruits. Yeah, right.
And then you wake up. No.
I mean, it's just, they are, one of the underlying tones that I got from reading this report twice was that they're now pretty aware that there's going to be a pushback from humanity on this technology. And what they're doing is they're laying the foundation for the people to accept it. It's good. It's a hallmark of a free society.
Yeah.
This is what freedom is.
We all get to share in everything, except what they don't know is that by their participation, they will be those KGB informants. They just won't know it.
Well, they're KGBing themselves.
Yeah.
Into the system, more or less. So.
Wow.
It's like, but how do you stop? How do you get a society who's been so conditioned through the conveniences and the utter, I can't live without this technology mentality, to stop using it? It's going to be extremely difficult. Now, I want to read this one section here. Remember how we talked about CERN?
Yes.
In the last episode? Mm-hmm. All right. Problem solving, creativity, and thinking through different courses of action arise from cognitive subsystems that tap into spatial reasoning and the mental mapping facilitated through the visual cortex. This is constitutively multispectral and all source and an all-source process, which results in a layered visualization capability that can fold space and time in any direction to facilitate reasoning, critical analyses, and the connection or correlation of fragments, real or imagined, to find hidden patterns. Remember the signal and the noise? Hidden patterns or exposed connections that do not yet exist. Folding space and time, isn't that what CERN is playing with? This is why I believe they're going to be using quantum computing. This is why I believe they're not going to be running GeoINT on a conventional hardware. As we discussed previously, these massive amounts of data to be run against millions of algorithms, producing billions of potential scenarios, which will have to be run through yet more algorithms to yield a reduced or manageable set of scenarios, and on and on and on, is incomprehensible with the computing technology that we have today. All right. We're almost done.
No, you know, the thing about it is my head just goes spinning off in all these directions. I just wonder, how are we really going to live with this? I mean, really, I mean, it's one thing when you look at the concentration camp internees, the prisoners there, and you go, that really happened. That was a long time ago, though, a long time. But other than the newsreel of these officially established camps in very old and civilized countries, it's just the same thing is going on. It's just the form has changed.
Yeah, it's without the fences and the concertina wire.
I'll tell you what. Let's pause for 5 minutes and freshen our teas and just get a fresh breath here, and then hit it again. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Just wanted to toss this into the mix, DJ. Question: could you perhaps have DJ back on with some solutions in big letters for how we, the people, can counter their plans for us? First, of course, we need to stop feeding them our data. I'm thinking massive nonviolent noncompliance across the board. We need to find alternatives to everything they are trying to set up to further enslave us via their 24/7 surveillance and electronic control grid. Could you please ask DJ to seriously think about some solutions that we the people can put into practice to combat the slave masters on Wall Street and in the Obamacare TPA TPP district of criminals? And that's from Ed. Also, I would like to hear comments on what she had to say about the supercomputers of J-Helm 15 being able to decrypt all forms of encryption within minutes instead of hundreds of years. And that's yeah, you and I touched on that a minute ago. It's like, so really forget about encrypted email from person to person?
Oh yeah, if they're working on a quantum computing platform from a hardware standpoint, yeah, your encryption means nothing.
You know, it seems to me needs to happen is we just need to communicate with each other in code, encrypt the code, and in the meantime, just send out all the false information that you can, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Just a waterfall. Just how about we clog up the pipes with just Bravo Sierra? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, is this possible?
Well, that goes to in this part of this GeoINT report, the final report, where they're talking about, some people might figure out how to geospoof, but we're not really worried about that right now because the technology is really not out there for the average individual, and that's why I'm calling on, hey, You want to sell some software at 99 cents a pop or $1.99 on Google App Store or whatever, or the Apple App Store? Come up with something that can geospoof, that you can put on your phone, on your tablet, that you can put on your, even your home-based PC.
All right, tell us about geospoofing.
Geospoofing is like a technique where, you know how your phone, no matter where you go, it can give you directions to here, find me this store in the area, find restaurants near me type of thing.
Yeah.
Find friends near me.
Find my friends.
Yeah, it can do that. Well, if you could, it can only do that because it knows where you are.
Right.
Now, in a geospoof app, you would download the app, you would turn it on, and it looks like you're in Quebec, Canada, or Brazil, or someplace.
Yes.
It doesn't reveal your exact location, so that could possibly trip up the system in some respect. You know, throw like a monkey wrench in it. Not a very big one, but it's a start.
How many would it take to begin to cause problems?
Well, they've already acknowledged, you know, in this conference paper that there's not enough of it going out. You know, there's not enough of it being done out there for it really to be a concern right now, but we must be vigilant, I think was their statement. We have to be vigilant about this.
I don't think they Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say they have to be vigilant because I think, you know, what they're thinking is we're just going to take this lying down. We're not going to stop using our smart devices the way we're using them. We're not going to stop using our computers the way we're using. We're just not going to. And we're going to roll over and take it.
Well, I got to say, and I said this at the beginning of the program, kudos to the Greeks. And I'll tell you, if anybody, and as a matter of fact, last night I was telling a friend that, you know, there is the possibility, I realize there is the possibility that somebody may say, well, you know, maybe we can hang in there for just a little while longer with the Eurozone. I said, but you know what? If anybody will tell the EU to go to hell, it's the Greeks. They've been around for thousands of years. They are somewhat, they're teetering somewhere, I don't want to say they're third world, but in a way, I would, let's say second world. I mean, they have enough technology, but they just don't have this huge manufacturing sector and all this stuff. The accoutrements, the monstrous accoutrements, I might say, of a first world society. But I would just like to restate this for all of the like-minded people in the world, as we are in 143 countries. I've been saying 64 for weeks. Mr. Ghost said, no, look at this. You know, I saw it myself. We don't necessarily, we can either have an open society, and I don't mean like George Soros has in mind, but we can either have some ethics and a real plan for nurturing humanity, or not. And that's entirely up to you. But please keep in mind that this has nothing to do with cutting off one's nose to spite one's face. It really doesn't. We're not jealous. We see what you do with your money. We see the monstrous initiatives that you try to put forward with your money. And many of us have decided, really, if aspiring to those things that we were taught for so many years that we should aspire to produces people like you who do the things that you do, we don't want any of that. We would rather go back to riding horses and occasionally waving at the UFOs go by in their high-tech craft than to live under your rule. We do not think that you are qualified to rule. We find you to be a bunch of crooked, unethical, largely half a sex case, most of you, and you have indulged yourselves so long, most of the humanness in the human being is now absent in your character. The Greeks would rather see your whole Eurozone fall down and live in poverty themselves than to live under your boot heel on their necks. And that goes for much of the rest of the population on planet Earth, too. If this thing falls down, and many of us hope that it will, oh yes, we know there will be riots, we know that there are certain segments of the population that will go crazy, We'll take care of that because you won't be taking our guns. You will never take our guns. Never. And if you do, well, there's going to be a great big booming black market to replace the ones that you confiscated. Because we see exactly what you will do if you ever disarm us. And don't think that we're that stupid. We're not. We know what you will do. So here's the thing. It's completely okay with many of us, maybe even most of us, if we have to start over after your new world order has fallen down and you with it. And you are cast destitute and penniless out into the streets to assume a new identity because you don't dare let anyone know who you really are. There, that's my rant for the moment. I'll turn it back over to you, DJ.
True that.
Well, it's just like enough already. Who in the hell do these people think that they are? They're just people. But we've got money. What? Well, that doesn't entitle you to subjugate the entirety of humanity so that you can sit on a yacht with supermodel hookers. We don't care about that. We don't.
But we, the people of the United States, have to be ready, willing, and able to stand behind the Grexit. And what Iceland did, tiny little Iceland, they rounded up all their criminal bankers, with pitchforks and baseball bats, and dragged them out of their offices and threw them in prison, prosecuted many of them, and deported the rest of them.
A bunch of them are doing time right now.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the story. I didn't report on it because there was other stuff going on. I should have. But I mean, if I was going to report on every story of interest, we would be a continual news service, and you're still going to miss something. So, but yeah, they prosecuted them all right, and some of them are in the slammer, effective no more than 2 weeks ago.
Good.
So it's good, yeah. And it can happen, folks. This is just to let you know, these politicians, if they're crooked, this Hillary Clinton, this horrible pustule of a human being, you're really going to let this person be president? We want a woman in the White House. Well, pick a real woman with some ethics.
Pick a human being.
Yes, pick a human being, not a pustule. Okay, here we go. All right, take it away, kiddo. Sorry about that. I just had to go off on these morons a little bit.
I just want to go over just a couple more paragraphs in this GeoINT and then move on to something else very important. All right. And I'm going back to the symposium final report. Quote, the question we may ask is whether geodata could be used to prevent the spread of contagious diseases by identifying key signs in infected individuals and enforcing containment. Technically, it could. Take Fitbit, for example. These wearable devices track daily activity, calories burned, sleep patterns, weight, and then upload the information wirelessly so progress can be tracked on mobile and online dashboards. Listen to this. Already seen in bracelet form, it is feasible such tracking technology could be embedded in watches and wedding rings. The opportunity is there to give away or even sell an individual's spatial health information.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll tell you what. So in other words, DJ, what you're saying is, if you think that the ads that pop up on the various websites that you visit are annoying, this should absolutely incense you.
Whatever happened to HIPAA? Those little papers you have to sign every time you go to a doctor's office?
Yeah.
No, we won't share your we won't share your health information with anyone.
No, they'll share it with everyone.
Yeah, they'll share it with everyone. Remember how we talked about the geo-spoofing before?
Yeah.
All right, listen to this. Quote, while there will be great advantages to broadcasting geolocation services, there will undoubtedly be those who do not want to be part of human-centric GeoINT. When everyone is connected, conspicuous holes in the data may draw more attention than the elements that fit in. Now, let me explain what this is saying. The holes they're referring to are those human network nodes lacking information that should be there but isn't. Okay?
All right.
All right. Now, all right, this is about pretty much all I wanted to cover for your listeners in this 32-page report that just recently came out. But I would like to comment that a common theme running throughout this paper was, number one, winning the hearts and minds of the public for support of this program. Number two, encouraging and promoting use of more open source platforms for the public. Number three, promoting public acceptance of this technology. Number four, how to address the question of how far will people go to trade privacy for security and for how long. Next, promoting the concept that massive data collection is in line with what the understanding of a free society is. This is the propaganda line that's going to start coming out. You wait. And the last one, who in government should make these decisions and who should be assigned what roles.
Oh boy.
Yeah, they know that pushback from this is coming. They know it, and they're preparing themselves for addressing that issue. And it's going to be a gigantic propaganda campaign. Now, getting back to the massive data collection and being on the computing platforms that we're currently on, I believe, excuse me, sorry, I believe that GeoINT is operating on IPv6 on the global information grid. Now, the current addressing transport protocol that most of the world is on is what's known as IPv4, Internet Protocol version 4. Now, IPv6 provides 2 to the 128th power of unique internet addresses, or IPs. That's 340 billion with 24 zeros after that number. To put this into perspective, this will provide a million IP6 addresses for every square millimeter on the Earth's surface. In other words, they can give an IP address to every grain of sand on the planet with addresses to spare.
Where are these centers located?
The IP, you mean like an IPv6 center?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're more or less packet information transport protocols for the data that we send across the web. It's the addressing system that's being used. If you go to, let's see, number 16, the IPv6 there, on the bottom of that slide is an example of an IPv6 internet address. Like for you and I, we have like our standard router address is 198.162.0.1.
Yeah.
That is the pretty standard protocol for your local or wide area router, your gateway. This is what an IPv6 address looks like. 560 F colon double F 08 colon 9184 colon 8675 colon 309 Delta colon 66 Foxtrot Bravo colon 701 Alpha colon 9 Bravo Charlie Delta. Good Lord. Yep.
Wow. How many different combinations can we get if we string them out like this?
Well, we can get 340 billion with 24 trailing zeros after it. The number's inconceivable.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, now IPv4, the version that most of the planet is on right now, is a 32-bit addressing system, whereas V6 is a 128-bit addressing system. Now, V4 and V6 operate as parallel networks. And the data that's traversing the internet in the V6 universe or network is invisible to the V4 universe or network. It would be like trying to see Channel 7, Channel 7 TV news broadcast while you're tuned into Channel 4. You can't. Now, IP version 4 architecture already consists of certain reserved IP addresses or IP blocks. Now, these are reserved for things like the military, DARPA, and certain private broadcast IPs. They're invisible to the public, even on the V4 internet. These blocked addresses are invisible. But the problem is in using them for GeoINT, they don't provide the scalability required by GeoINT on the global information grid. Now, if you subscribe to the information published about these two addressing protocols, you would believe that V6 is not backward compatible to V4. This may not necessarily be the case or the truth, and here's why. Like we mentioned, the V6 universe or network provides the 340 billion with 24 zeros tacked on the end of IP addresses. There are currently, in the V4 network environment, there are 4.3 billion unique IP addresses that most are in use today. All they would have to do, and this is not going to be a very good explanation, but I want to try and just simplify it so people can try and understand how they can possibly make this backward compatible. You set up 4.3 billion V6 addresses and point them or assign them to existing V4 addresses in the V6 universe. Now they can traverse or see all of the information on both networks without providing V4 users, without providing V4 users the required hardware to participate in a V6 universe. I would suggest, and I can't prove this, but I would suggest that this has already been done. They've already set up the routers and the gateways on their end for this GeoINT system to do this. With 7 billion people on the planet and less than 300 million available IPs, I'm willing to bet the farm they not only will have to use IPv6 with GeoINT, but they're already using it on the global information grid.
Yeah, that's typically the way it is. By the time we really hear anything about it, enough to be able to talk about it, they're already doing it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead. I got some questions for in here.
Okay.
So, I suppose it's never too early to wonder what's the next version of this. Let's just assume for the moment that this really has already been rolled out. It's already being used, just like Jade Helm. It's probably running now. I don't think they're waiting another week to kick it off. So, where can they take it from here? Let's say that everything that you've described, they go, hey, it's gone pretty smooth. It's gone smoothly. We've got it out there. Where can they take it from here?
Global enslavement. By creating every person on the planet or transforming every person on the planet into a human network node. I mean, these people, many of them, the proponents of global governance, subscribe to technocracy, which is the science of letting technology run society. Because, of course, technology can do a much better job at it than humans can, as long as we're programming the technology and they're running it the way we want it to be run. And we're not in that club.
No.
No. Do you remember, I think we briefly discussed that BBC remote mind control technology that allows viewers to change channels using thought power alone?
Yes.
Okay. Numbers, slide 18 and 19. I actually did find a picture of this hardware I found an illustration of this thought projection hardware, and that's in slide 19. But, I just want to, let me cite a couple of things in the report that was put out by RT. And it says, through the technology, though the technology is still at experimental stage, developers are already getting positive results. Well, if you're getting positive results, then it's no longer in a development stage. It actually works, right?
Right.
Okay. And it goes on to say, quote, you can imagine a world where instead of having to get up from your sofa or reach for your remote, you just think, put BBC Channel 1 on
Oh, boy.
when you want to watch TV. Yeah, you can imagine the more nefarious applications of technology that can not only transmit directly from your brain to a piece of tech, but it can receive transmissions from an outside source directly to the brain as well. And I love how these people always put things in the context of, we're trying to help, the poor people that can't access this technology. And, where is it here? An important potential benefit that brainwave technology might offer, and this goes right into the next section we're going to talk about, is the ability to improve the accessibility of media content to people with disabilities. They always go to that. Disabled people, the children, the elderly. And it says, for example, people affected by motor neuron disease or suffering locked-in syndrome may increasingly be able to use brain-computer interfaces to get a better experience of digital and media services.
I'll tell you, that old tinfoil hat sounded better all the time.
I know. Than they currently do. I mean, this statement in and of itself goes to what we have discussed before, bringing global information grid technology to those who currently don't have access in any way, shape, or form they can deliver it. It says, and then this is all I'm going to talk about on this. It says, however, the headsets might not become a working reality for some time, as their capabilities are currently quite basic. No. Rest assured, if this technology is being state-funded through mainstream media, they're not going to publicly discuss what other capabilities or applications for this technology planned or under development for data collection directly tapped into your brain. I mean, this is the part that's still under development, or has been developed but under wraps.
The thing is, and then of course the next evolution would be, how many people's heads can we put this stuff into at the same time?
Wow.
Well, it's going to be like, it's going to be worse than the audiences that they ask to come in to see these various sitcoms and so forth. It's like clap and then stop. It's like clap and then stop. It's like ultimate human robots, ultimate automatons, or automaton.
Total command and control. Now, I'm glad you brought this up, because I found 4 patents, DoD and military patents for government application. And each one of these patents was 12 to 14 pages long, but I'm going to go over 2 of the really nefarious ones. And patent number 3951134, distant brain reading and brainwave manipulation. Date filed April 10th, 1976. Well, let me just go down this thing and read the abstract and an abridged summary of the invention and the objects of the invention, and then your audience can draw their own conclusions from this. Apparatus for and method of sensing brain waves at a position remote from a subject, whereby electromagnetic signals of different frequencies are simultaneously transmitted to the brain of the subject, in which the signals interfere with one another to yield a waveform which is modulated by the subject's brain waves. The interference waveform, which is representative of the brainwave activity, is then retransmitted by the brain to a receiver where it is demodulated and amplified. The demodulated waveform is then displayed for visual viewing and routed to a computer for further processing and analysis. The demodulated waveform also can be used to produce a compensating signal, which is transmitted back to the brain to affect a desired change in electrical activity therein. All right.
Wow.
Now, yeah, summary of the invention. The present invention relates to apparatus and a method for monitoring brain waves wherein all components of the apparatus employed are remote from the test subject. So we're talking about remote MK Ultra here, whereas in MK Ultra it requires drugs and a handler. This does not. More specifically, high-frequency transmitters are operated to radiate electromagnetic energy of different frequencies through antennas, which are capable of scanning the entire brain of a test subject or any desired region thereof. Now, I would say this would be Gwen Towers and HARP, as well as voluntary techware, like the thought-controlled remote TV controller we just went over. Moving on. The signals of different frequencies penetrate the skull of the subject and impinge upon the brain, where they mix to yield an interference wave modulated by radiations from the brain's natural electrical activity. The modulated interference wave is retransmitted by the brain and received by an antenna at a remote station, where it is demodulated and processed by a computer to provide a profile of the subject's brain waves. In addition to passively, which means the subject doesn't know, monitoring his brain waves, the subject's neurological processes may be affected by transmitting to his or her brain through a transmitter and compensating signals. The latter signals can be derived from the received and processed brainwaves. Now, this would be any type of wireless, RF, or microwave receiver/transmitter, local or remote, to the subject. Now, let's move on to the objects of this invention. It is therefore an object of the invention to remotely monitor electrical activity in the entire brain or selected local regions thereof with a single measurement. Now, in my opinion, this serves two purposes. One, creating a unique bio-identifier or bio-API for each human network node. And two, mapping your mind, creating a unique human terrain for every human node on the GeoINT network. Now, the next object of the invention is monitoring of a subject's brainwave actively through transmission and reception of electromagnetic waves. With the technology being employed by GeoINT, this can be done on an individual or population-centric basis. And a further object for this invention is to provide a method and apparatus for affecting brainwave activity by transmitting electromagnetic signals thereto. The apparatus they're referring to in this section is wearable tech. They're talking about manipulating your brain via network broadcasts. In summary, I know this stuff's been in the works for a while.
You know what's strange is I'm just wondering if these, as radio and television stations and the big antennas and transmitters are supplanted by internet carriers, I wonder if those frequencies, if that's what they're going to reassign these frequencies to do. I really wonder.
It may be, or it may be that they may also be broadcasting a signal in the noise being the actual internet or television, satellite television broadcast, and the signal being the technology they're talking about in this patent.
Well,
Now,
it looks go ahead. It's like they've been working on this for a while. Talk about a bunch of determined little devils.
oh, they're evil geniuses. They really are. A profile of the entire brainwave emission pattern may be monitored or may be subject to selected areas of the brain and may be observed in a single measurement simply by altering the scan angle and direction of the antennas. They have had the technology to map your mind, and now it appears they have the ability to deploy this technology on a large scale. This is referenced over and over again in the GeoINT and the J2 documents. This is how they intend to master the human domain. Okay.
Wow.
Quote, there is no physical contact between the subject and the monitoring apparatus, end quote. Again, this goes to creating human nodes on a global information grid network that will be monitored and controlled by the GeoINT system. All right, quote, the computer can also determine a compensating waveform for transmission to the brain to alter the natural brain waves in a desired fashion. The closed loop compensating system permits instantaneous and continuous modification of brain wave response patterns. What have we been talking about? Okay, this is remote mind control being conducted over a network. MK Ultra taken from a scale of a one-on-one to a scale by orders of magnitude.
All right. Let's say they want to do this. Now, we know that we can defeat thermal imaging equipment with a simple one of those space blankets, you know, the foil thing.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to paint it, but anyway, camo it, something. Because otherwise they'll shoot at the reflective foil. But what can you imagine of the defenses against this? Suppose you don't want your brain modified or broadcast to manipulate it. You don't want thoughts. And I mean, this has been going on for a long time, that they could actually put words in your head that you can hear being spoken. I suspect that that's true. I mean, for a while it was the stuff of woo-woo, but it's no longer the stuff of woo-woo. It is absolutely possible. I mean, just like that experiment they conducted where one guy on one side of the campus thought something, and the other guys at the other end of the campus, or maybe it was at a different campus, but it doesn't matter. They were hooked up over the net. He moves his arm. He made him slap himself in the face or something. I don't remember what it was, but in any case, one guy's thoughts went into another guy's head, and his body reacted to it. So, other than walking around like the old Felix the Cat, have you ever seen Felix the Cat? There was a character in there called the Master Cylinder. He was just this little robot guy, just a guy that existed inside this cylinder. I mean, is that what we're going to have to do? Just wear little radar and wave absorbing suits, and that's just how it is? I mean, how do you defend against this?
Well, if you know that they can accomplish this remote mind control through a multiple of different types of transmissions, from IR to microwave to electromagnetic, then the first thing that comes to my mind is shielding.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, are we thinking wearable or shielding? Like a Spider-Man suit, only it's made out of shielding material? tinfoil hat. We'll make tinfoil ski masks or what? I mean, I know you're not a fashion designer. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
how do you defend against this? I mean, do you just, I mean, they've already got, have you seen that mask, You Are Me? And it's the designer's face. And it looks really realistic. You can just stick it on and you are him. And you walk around with that so the facial recognition can't get you.
Oh, wow. No, I haven't.
It's kind of cool.
No, I haven't. But, to answer your question, the first thing that comes to my mind would be signal shielding.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if this could be done with sort of like a noise canceling headset. You just broadcast something around you which nullifies the signal that's coming in.
If you can identify the signal coming in.
That would be a problem, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then you could use a reverse wave modulator type of, how you can cancel out sound using an oscilloscope, and then like a sound broadcast where you project an equal and opposite wave, and it cancels out both waves with sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you have to do that when you're mixing a record. If you got two incompatible sounds together, there will be a signal cancellation. You won't hear either one of them.
Mm-hmm. That comes to mind.
Yep.
Okay.
Wow. I say wow during conversations with you more than any other person I've ever talked to. Wow. It's kind of a moronic thing to say, but when you got to say something, that's all you got. That's what you say.
Now, there's two more paragraphs I would just like to go over here in the condensed version and then move on to the next patent.
Mm-hmm.
It states that in performing the brainwave pattern modification function, the computer, again, can be furnished with an external standard signal from a source representative of brainwave activity associated with a desired neurological response. The region of the brain responsible for the response is monitored, and the received signal indicative of the brainwave activity therein is compared with the standard signal. This goes to normalization. Remember, predicting patterns out of the norm? This is taking that one step further.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The compensating signal, when transmitted to the monitored region of the brain, modulates the natural brainwave activity therein toward a reproduction of the standard signal, thereby changing the neurological response of the subject. Now, this sounds to me a lot like remote behavior modification. Remember in our previous discussions, we talked about these systems being able to determine behavioral patterns considered to be out of the norm based on parameters set by the HTA, or the Human Terrain Analysis tool, using ABI. It appears, at least according to this patent, they can identify undesirable brainwave patterns and correct them. So the question is this how those humans determined to be re-educatable going to be reprogrammed?
Sort of sounds like it. It's a lot. Seems like it'd be a lot more cost effective than putting them all in a camp and have a lecture every hour on the hour.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. It is to be noted that the configuration described is one of many possibilities which may be formulated without departing from the spirit of my invention. The transmitters can be monostatic or bistatic. They can also be single, dual, or multiple frequency devices. In other words, bombarding the brain or bombarding different parts of the brain simultaneously. The transmitted signal can be continuous wave, pulse, FM, or any combination of these, as well as other transmission forms. Typical operating frequencies for the transmitters range from 1 megahertz to 40 gigahertz, but may be altered and may be altered to suit the particular function being monitored and the characteristics of the specific subject. Various subassemblies, is that right? Subassemblies of the brainwave monitoring and control apparatus may be added, substituted, or combined. Thus, separate antennas or a single multi-node antenna may be used for transmission and reception. Now, I would like to also add that these Gwen towers and HARP, microwave and electromagnetic antennas, voluntary wearable tech with receive and transmit capabilities, which can and probably will be used for this as well. Remember, this patent was registered 39 years ago, and I'm sure they've made significant leaps and bounds regarding the footprint of the receiver transmitter technology, as well as in the area of range and remote targeting they were able to accomplish back then.
Let me ask you this: what will be the signs that the evolution of this invention from the 70s, or this patent from the 70s?
Well, I think one of the signs that we should be looking for, and I put this out on like my micro net of people in my geographic area, is, I've asked them, get back to me if you see any portable mobile antennas, whether they're in dish form, radio frequency transmission form, more Gwen towers, and now they're creatively disguising them as palm trees out here in the desert, these metal palm trees, and these Gwen receiver transmitters are up in the fronds of the palms. Yeah, they don't look too conspicuous, but I've been asking them, let me know if you see these things. They may look like a generator box on wheels with an antenna or a small sat dish sticking up from them. I mean, if we start seeing these things pop up in the area, I think our concern should go up a notch.
Indeed. Yeah, there's no stopping it, is there? I mean, I keep thinking that, first you can forget about the movies because there's nothing realistic really anymore about any of that. You can't even really draw anything that'll feed your imagination from them now because there are too many computer-generated images for your imagination to interfere with that. Mm-hmm. But, I just keep thinking, the rebel base, the rebellion. There needs to be a rebellion. I mean, seriously, once, just philosophically speaking, DJ, once they have accomplished global enslavement, you just do what you're told. We can read your thoughts. If they're not nice thoughts, we'll reprogram your thoughts to where they are nice thoughts that we think are nice. And if we can't do that, well, we'll just get rid of you. The problem is who's calling the shots on all of that, of course. And the thing is that what kind of a society would that actually be? I mean, they can't, these people can't possibly think that all of these different people, I mean, from the sub-Saharan Africans to the people in the Middle East up toward the north there, to the Eastern Europeans, to the South Americans, I mean, do they really think that everybody's going to somehow go along with this? Or are they thinking that they don't have to go along with it because we're going to roll it out? They won't even know that it's there, see? So there's nothing to go along with.
I think it's the latter. I mean, and we spoke about how Mark Zuckerberg and, those of his ilk are trying to bring things like Facebook and internet technology into, like you mentioned, sub-Saharan Africa. What do those people want with that technology? It's a means to an end. It's a means to getting everybody plugged into this grid. And to answer your initial question, is what do we do about it? I think what we do about it has to be in the here and now. If we wait until this thing is completely unrolled or unleashed on humanity, it's too late. Because they'll know. I mean, GeoINT and J2 are already talking about with their activity-based intelligence, their ABI, their CBR, and all the different modules they have in that computer software, they know an event is going to occur before it occurs, and they can take preemptive action to stop it, prevent it, change it, or eliminate it. So, as I mentioned before, I have this horrible feeling we're running out of time.
Yeah.
I just do. And I don't mean to alarm anybody by that, but in the context of all the information that you've allowed me to bring forth on your platform, on your show, in addition to the stuff that we're discussing with your audience now, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Know what they have the capability to do, know how, at least to the best of our ability to know how they will carry this out. And we need to start thinking collectively on what we're going to do about this. And if this means, how can I put this in a politically correct way?
Don't even worry about that.
Destroying the databases.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're collecting all this information. I mean, who do they think they are to be collecting everything and anything on everyone and anyone and using it to their own ends? Who do they think they are? They're putting themselves in a position of a god that we have to bow down to.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what they want.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of Excalibur when, Percival's runs into Lancelot and says, hey, come on. He goes, there's the great knight. They set themselves up as gods, and Christ has abandoned us, and Percival's going down the river there. He's about to drown, and he says, Lancelot, come back to us. Arthur needs you. And it's really quite an inspirational thing, because that's where we are. What if we have allowed these people to set themselves up as gods, and Christ abandons us? I'm not saying that I think he would. I'm saying, what if he would? Where are we then? Because, there's one thing that they can't control, and that's the creator of the universe. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking, what makes us think how many people in wartime have been rescued from certain disaster, and there was absolutely no reason for them to have survived it at all, except there was what we would call divine intervention. They were rescued from that, and they've gone on to testify to it later on. I just wonder where the spiritual component is in all of this, because these people are patently evil. Look, anybody who wants to enslave people, especially when you don't need to, it's because you can that you do it. That's what bad people do. I said this in earlier programs. Like, bad people do bad things for one reason. It's because they can. They like it. So, and I think if we have a big convention, we all get together, and you're there, and I'll be there. I'll be there too, and we'll all be speaking about this. Well, then what? What happens if the jackbooted thugs come in, decide just to arrest everybody, and just disappear us? See, folks, we're not there yet, but it could get to that point. As soon as the status quo is threatened at a high enough level, that's when you're going to see the pushback. And you better be prepared to push back even harder against the pushback, or the opposing force, the enslavement apparatus, is going to get its way. And that's all there is to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I think a lot of the reason why they've been able to achieve their level, let's call it, is through, how do they say that the devil or Lucifer works? Through trickery and deception and misdirection. How we've been handed all this technical candy. Go out and use it. Go out and use it. Never questioning, well, this is coming from the top down. So how could this be used against us? And in the beginning stages saying, nah, I really don't think I want a smartphone, or I really don't think I want an iPad. Now, today, you're considered abnormal if you don't have this technology.
Hmm.
And so I think it's been like, uh, a bait and switch they pulled.
Yeah, there's every kind of shaming out there. There's even I've been hearing about fat shaming and so forth. I suppose now it's going to be tech shaming.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Right. Oh, you don't have a computer? Oh, well.
You can't be my friend if I can't find you
Yeah.
on my
If I can't
smartphone.
find you on Facebook.
Yeah.
Mhm. So let's go over patent number 6011991.
Okay.
Again, and this goes to remote brain computer interface, neural monitoring, patent date January 4th, 2000. Now, before I get into this, I just want to let your audience know that when I was reading through these patents and going through all the pages and pages of documentation, it was alarming to me to find out how many associated patents were out there that were in direct correlation to just these two patents we're going to be talking about. There was some 24 to 30 of them.
Derivatives.
Derivative patents, yeah. Now, under this patent, I'll give you just a quick hit on the abstract. System and method for enabling human beings to communicate by way of their monitored brain activity. What they're talking about here and what GeoINT was talking about previously, and to an extent what Jade Helm can do, this is artificial telepathy. All right, the brain activity of an individual is monitored and transmitted to a remote location by satellite. At the remote location, the monitored brain activity is compared with pre-recorded normalized brain activity curves, waveforms, or patterns to determine if a match or substantial match is found. Now, I can see this going to the edging, the human nodes on the network. Remember we talked about edge and elicit, and for those of your listeners who were not tuned in to episode 309, this is discussed in that episode without having to get into all that again. So this determine if a match or a substantial match is found, edging the human nodes on the network, as well as going to the ABI data being collected, going to thought-based activity, not just activity-based activity, but thought-based activity, or TBI, for mapping and mastering the human domain. Goes on to say, if such a match is then found, then a computer at the remote location determines that the individual was attempting to communicate a word, phrase, or thought corresponding to the match stored normalized signal. Now, if this technology is employed in GeoINT, you won't even have the privacy of your own thoughts. Again, I don't think this technology was funded, developed, and patented for government and military use to sit on a shelf somewhere collecting dust.
My opinion is it needs to be destroyed immediately.
Absolutely.
And forbidden to be developed. It really does. I mean, I'm not trying to keep us all stuck in Neanderthal land here, but this is wrong. There are too many opportunities to do some very, very high level horrible things with this kind of tech. I mean, what do these people think that they're doing? I mean, I keep coming back to that question. I mean, what possible? Let me ask you this. Let's play devil's advocate for just a second. What possible benefit could this be to anybody or anything? Seriously.
There is no benefit to humanity.
I mean, you can't even think of a single benefit, no matter how imbued the people operating this apparatus must have to be lily white and care only about nurturing humanity. What possible benefit can there be? I'm trying. I can't find one.
Oh, that's probably because there isn't one.
Ah. Well, you said that. Okay.
I couldn't find one either. I mean, again, going back to that BBC state-funded MSM technology, well, it's for the paraplegics and the people who are, mobily challenged to be able to enjoy changing the TV with only the mere introduction of a thought into the headset apparatus. I mean, that's not what they're doing this for. I mean, if you still believe that in this day and age, I'm sorry, but you're really naive to the world going on around you. And I hope that didn't seem harsh, but really, I mean, maybe I've just spent too much time on this stuff to be sympathetic in any way, shape, or form. But when you see the indicators all pointing to the same direction, and that direction is off a cliff, you better start paying attention.
Oh. I'm just waiting to hear what else you're going to say. This is all just extraordinarily disturbing. I mean, the only possible benefit to this is that there's an asteroid headed toward the Earth, and it's going to be here in 2 hours. So, get your stuff together, and maybe you could send out a mass message like that, and then send another one, a be calm message. Just sit down and be quiet. It'll be over soon. I mean, that's about it.
Wait, you'll see. They can do that too.
Thunderstorms are coming. Send that out to everybody.
Okay, now this invention, this is their description. This invention relates to a system and method for enabling human beings to communicate with one another by monitoring brain activity. In particular, this invention relates to such a system and method where brain activity of a particular individual is monitored and transmitted in a wireless manner, using satellites from location of the individual to a remote location so that the brain activity can be computer analyzed and the remote location therefore enabling the computer and or individuals at the remote location to determine what the monitored individual was thinking or wishing to communicate. Moving on. In certain embodiments, this invention relates to the analysis of brain waves or brain activity and or to the remote firing of select brain nodes in order to produce a predetermined effect on an individual or a mass of individuals. This is remote mind control, like I mentioned before. There's no doubt about it. No doubt in my mind. Summary of the invention. Generally speaking, this invention fulfills the above described needs in the art by providing a method of communicating comprising the following steps. 1, providing a first human being at a first location. Okay, this would amount to the equivalent of your patient 0 or target node on a network. Number 2, providing a computer at a second location that is remote from the first location. Now, this would be in the grand scheme of things, the GeoINT AI system on the global information grid. Providing a satellite. This would be the space component of the domain on the GeoINT system. Number 4, providing at least one sensor, preferably a plurality, tens, hundreds, or thousands, with each sensor monitoring the firing of one or more brain nodes or synapses on the first human being. Now, this ties into the remote nano-sensing devices discussed in the previous GeoINT symposium and reports. Number 5, detecting brain activity of the first human being using at least one sensor and transmitting the detected brainwave activity to a satellite as a signal, including brain activity information. Once you're a human node on a geospatial intelligence network with a unique bio API or network identifier, this is a piece of cake to do. And I'm talking about piece of cake in the realm of targeting, identifying and targeting. Okay, number 6, it says the satellite then sends a signal, including the brain activity information, to a second location, or in other words, down to the GIG for processing. Number 7, a receiver at the second location receiving the signal from the satellite and forwarding the brain activity information in the signal to the computer. Now, remember, we discussed how the HTA tool and the AI programs being developed for identifying the signal in the noise. This brain mapping technology goes to that aspect of GeoINT.
Oh boy.
Number 8, comparing the received brain activity information of the first human being with normalized or averaged brain activity information relating to the first human being from memory. Now, this gets hairy. This goes to mapping individual human nodes for normalcy patterns from a telepathic ABI standpoint by way of mapping the human brain activity and casting a neural net over humanity. This is what scares me the most, okay?
Yeah.
Number 9, determining whether the first human being was attempting to communicate particular words, phrases, or thoughts based upon the comparing of the received brainwave activity information to the information from memory. Now, if it can distinguish reminiscing thought from present time, space activity, communication of words, phrases, thoughts, then this technology can, in essence, determine intent from a brain activity standpoint before the action is actually executed by the first human being. Now, can you imagine the massive implications of this technology layered on an artificial intelligence core on the GeoINT network system?
Oh, yes.
I mean, this is monstrous.
Yes, it is. That's just the word.
It goes on to say, in certain embodiments, the invention includes the following step: asking the first human being a plurality of questions and recording his or her brain activity of the first human being's response to the plurality of questions in the process of developing said normalized or average brain activity information relating to the first human being stored in the computer's memory. A database in a memory may include for each of a plurality, and then it says in parens, either hundreds or thousands of individuals, a number of pre-recorded files, each corresponding to a particular thought, attempt to communicate a word, attempt to communicate a phrase, or thought, or a mental state. Now, this goes to the J2 and the GeoINT's ability again to detect and read emotions. But this is going for taking it from activity-based and facial and body language, the ability to read that, to going into the ability to monitor and read brainwave activity or thought pattern activity in that concept. Now,
Yeah.
measured brain activity of a given individual may be compared to files from that database of that individual to determine what the individual is attempting to communicate and, get this, what type of mental state the individual is in at any given time. This capability, again, we discussed within the GeoINT context, and it goes to answering questions before they're asked. Remember that?
Oh, yes.
And answering questions, providing answers to questions that don't yet exist. This is the second level of the capability of being able to do that. Now, they also, in this capability statement, they state that in certain embodiments, the plurality of questions are the same question, and in certain embodiments, the plurality of the questions are different questions. Wow, Do you see a parallel here? Both of these statements absolutely go to the dichotomy we discussed in the previous report we did regarding data neutrality and signal neutrality. In certain embodiments, the invention includes the step of normalizing or averaging recorded brain activity responsive to a given question or a set of questions in developing the normalized or averaged brain activity information relating to the first human being. And I apologize, a lot of this stuff is redundant, but that's how they write these patents.
Oh, yes.
Okay, goes on to say it is an object of this invention to enable brain activity of a first human being to be monitored with the activity being transmitted to a remote location so that individuals and or a computer at the remote location can determine what the first human being was thinking or intending to communicate. In such a manner, human beings can communicate with one another via monitoring of brainwave activity and transmission of the same. We're not going to see that. Okay. Now, again, in the grand scope of things, this is not synthetic telepathy for humans to communicate with other humans. This is the ability to read or map brain functions and then send that information to a machine for processing and interpretation for an actionable response by an AI system.
An actionable response.
Yep.
You just leave it to your imagination what that actionable response might be, right?
Oh, it goes and gives examples. It is another object of this invention to communicate monitored brain activity from one location to another in a wireless manner. Remember we talked about the OCOM technology, which transmits data and energy wirelessly over the airwaves?
Yes.
And they go on, they say, again, and this is a little redundant, they can use all types of broadcast signals, IR, RF, satellite, in other words, over the domain of land, air, and space. It is another object of this invention to provide a system capable of identifying particular nodes in an individual's brain, the fringes of which affect characteristics such as appetite, hunger, thirst, communication skills, thought processes, depression, and the like. When such nodes are identified, they may be specifically monitored by one or more sensors to analyze behavior or communications or words, phrases, or thoughts. In other words, embodiments, devices, in other embodiments, devices mounted to the person, such as underneath the scalp, which would be wetware, may be energized in a predetermined manner or sequence to remotely cause particular identified brain nodes to be fired in order to cause a predetermined feeling or reaction in the individual, such as lack of hunger, lack of depression, lack of thirst, lack of aggression, lack of Alzheimer's disease effects, or the like. Now, the devices mounted to the person, as we just mentioned, can be wetware tech or wearable tech. And I think they're moving in the direction of wearable. The remotely transmitted neural stimulation can also trigger the exact opposite of the predetermined feelings and reactions that they mentioned above. It can also trigger fear, depression, aggression, anxiety. How about pain? That has serious implications stemming from the complete blocking out or blocking of or the inducement of this sensation remotely.
It just gets better and better, doesn't it?
No, not really. Brain node firings are the basis of thought and mind processes of individuals. Skipping down here, each individual has a distinct pattern of brain node firings. This goes to neural ABI, okay? Each individual has a distinct pattern pattern of brain node firings or brain activity. Each person is believed to be different in this regard. Thus, a separate brain activity file may be stored in a memory for each individual and analyzed or compared to received brain activity from the monitored individual in order to determine what an individual is thinking or attempting to communicate. And this is a redundant theme throughout this patent. But I would like to add that this also goes to creating a unique bioidentifier for each human network node based on their individual unique brain activity signature. This also goes, though, to catalyzing and establishing norms based on an individual's brain activity in addition to the mind reading capability identified in this patent.
Wow.
Moving on. It
Yes,
is an
please.
object of this invention to utilize brain monitoring and transmission of monitored brain activity for lie detection and or human communication on a broad scale. Now, I did 2 video reports. One was entitled GeoINT, Casting a Neural Net on Humanity, and the other one was The History of Jade 2, Planetary Conquest by a Global AI Warfare System. I explained how that this AI tech would be able to read if a person is telling the truth or lying by the interpretation of body language, voice intonations, and facial expressions, and make a determination for a course of action. This takes it to the next level.
Yeah, I'll say. Just keep rolling. This is amazing. I'm using the word amazing.
I don't want to be too redundant and put everybody to sleep, so I don't want to keep reading the same thing, but that's how the patent is written.
Don't much think you're doing that.
Okay. At least one sensor on the scalp or skin in certain embodiments provides signals representative of physiological activity generated in the brain of a monitored individual. A data acquisition device receives the signals representative of the psychological activity generated in the monitored brain and then, as mentioned before, transforms the signals into a pattern or curve corresponding to the monitored brain activity. This is then transmitted, again, this is an upward modification of the earlier tech, by satellite instead of by ground-based antenna, to a computer located at a remote location with the monitored brain activity pattern or curve being stored in a memory at a remote location. The computer then causes the received pattern or curved information to be compared with stored brain activity pattern information relating to the monitored individual in order to determine A, whether the monitored individual is lying compared with stored brain activity patterns and information relating to the monitored individual, and B, what the monitored individual is communicating or attempting to communicate. So, in other words, they have the capability now with the global information grid in conjunction with GeoINT to reduce humanity to the sum total of the data collected on each human network node. Not only that, your every activity, transaction, communication, and even your innermost personal thoughts will be cataloged and uploaded to a Hive-based AI system on a network-centric global information grid.
And the thing is this is not just theory.
No.
That's what everyone needs to remember. This is not just theory. This is in the, well, it would not be inaccurate to say it's being deployed now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, it's being deployed now.
And I think that's what the Jade Helm 15, I mean, we're all seeing the front end of this exercise, but fortunately, you know, with your help, maybe now a lot of people are starting to see the back end, which they don't want you looking at. And that's the AI-based network-centric system that has predictive capabilities and preemptive capabilities in crowd management, not only from a military standpoint, but on a civil level as well. And that's why I think they're all dangling the shiny object, with the boots on the ground. And again, not to say there should be no concern there, but I think the bigger concern is what they're trying for us not to focus on, which is going on behind the curtain. And that's a system rollout to see how well this thing can respond and react to an environment they're creating, they're promoting, and they are going to ultimately trying to command and control or contain and confine the human activity in.
Very interesting. And somewhat simultaneously with Jade Helm, we also have Talisman Sabre 2015, the U.S.-Australian joint exercise. And the net is just full of stuff on it. It's Army's increasing influence in the Pacific. It's the thing that's odd is, wait a second, the Army's influence in the Pacific. You would think that would be Navy, but no.
Yeah, or Air Force, but the Army.
The Army actually gets all of the newest, latest, and greatest stuff. They get all the new toys before anybody else does, except maybe the Navy, because they develop most of it, or a lot of it. I'm just wondering, I don't know, to even ask any questions about the relationship between these two exercises. But it seems like, we got the Navy and we got the Marines and SOCOM working Jade Helm, and we got the Army working Talisman Sabre. So basically all of the branches of the service are involved. I haven't heard anything about the Air Force yet, but that'll be next, I guess.
Well, what's interesting, too, along that line that you were just mentioning, is that I read a blurb on a report that apparently there are a lot of these military training exercises, like Jade Helm and like the one you just mentioned, being conducted all over the world right now, from Europe to, I guess, Asia, Russia. So it's not confined to the Southwest United States. These exercises now are being conducted on varying scales all over the planet. And I think that's a little odd.
Do you think it might be something like, is there any chance that it's something like space rocks out there, great big ones, big nasty ones that are going to hit the planet and cause some sort of outrageous dust cloud and we'll all freeze off and all that, I mean, is it possible that all of this military is being deployed for, I think I've answered my own question. Yeah, of course, anything's possible, but financial collapse, asteroid collision, pick your favorite grief, and yeah, it could be that. It's just, everybody wants to get a real handle on stuff, and that just kind of goes without saying. But it's not easy. It's just that you see all this stuff being rolled out, and you go, well, what could they be up to, and will it have anything to do with us individually? I mean, in the end, that's what people want to know. They got to protect them. They got to put their own oxygen mask on first before they assist the child, so to speak. So everybody's interested in, well, what will my involvement be in this great agenda?
It's hard to say. I mean, because when you live in a world that is absolutely predicated on lies, deception, and misdirection, it's hard to get a pulse on what they're actually doing, what is their actual intent. Will they use this to protect humanity? Well, this tech in and of itself doesn't seem to have any benevolent use for humanity whatsoever. So why would they protect us? I think my own personal opinion is if they knew something was coming in from space and they knew it was going to hit, I don't think we'd get any forewarning. I really don't.
I don't either.
I mean, they have their places to go and their holes in the ground and their continuity of government. I mean, they've got all this stuff set up. So, but anyway,
Yep.
I digress. I'm going off on a tangent.
Me too.
So, moving on, and there's not much more on this, but it's important that your viewers understand what this technology is capable of, when it was patented, and just use a little imagination to think to what stage or what level they've brought it to today, 19 years later. Okay, in certain embodiments of this invention, the computer located at the remote location includes a neural network suitably programmed in accordance with known neural network techniques for the purpose of receiving the monitored brain activity signals, transforming signals into useful forms, training and testing the neural network to distinguish particular forms and patterns of psychological activity generated in the brain of the monitored individual, and or comparing the received monitored brain activity information with stored information relating to the individual in order to determine what the individual is attempting to communicate or how they're attempting to react. And again, this goes to the already known capabilities of the J2 system and the GeoINT, and expands on those capabilities using remote command and control aspects of MK Ultra. You don't have to have drugs or a handler involved with this diabolical stuff. It can be done remotely. It can be done from across the planet if they're using satellites.
God, is that amazing or what? It's too bad that that this kind of this rich of a program couldn't be used to actually, I don't know, do some good instead of just go the other way. It just seems to be the way of things, I suppose.
I mean, tapping people's brains without their knowledge.
Doesn't suggest any beneficial applications, does it, really?
Not really. I'm sure there's a lot they're not telling us. This is only the stuff that is available in the public domain.
Yeah, the thing that really gets me is that, yeah, exactly what you said, that's disturbing also. This is just what's available in the public domain. So what's not available in the public domain is probably exponentially, well, scarier. I don't think any of it's going to make us feel any better about the people who are running things. Somehow I think that one just escapes me completely.
I think this is like an iceberg where we only see, they're only letting us see the tip. Oh, look what we can do, up at where 9/10 of it is underwater and below sight. You're not seeing it. But this should give you a pretty good indicator of where they not only can, but are probably intending to go with this tech.
Mm-hmm.
Given the grid they've already set up, given they have an alternate, let's call it alternate universe that they can operate their network on, that we can't see, but they can see everything that we're doing, but we can't see anything they're doing, at least not yet. Who knows if that day will ever come? Let me see. And again, this patent, like I said, is about 14 pages. The devices that they're referring to in both of these patents can be wetware, but I think that they're moving towards this wearable tech or directed signal transmission in the form of radio signal transmission, microwave, ELF, electromagnetics. I don't think they're going to be actively taking people in and putting brain implants or RFID chips. They could, but I don't think that's the direction they're going. And the reason I don't think that is because there's such a pushback against that right now, where they can accomplish the same results without even having to do that.
Let me ask you this: what about the poor folks, the people that can't afford wearable tech? I wonder if it would be possible to inhale enough nano-sized metallic particles and just make yourself into a little individual antenna that somehow or another could pick up your unique code of one kind or another. I mean, there must be an internal identifier that's just as distinctive as a fingerprint or an iris. And I'm just wondering if how are they going to catch those? How are they going to get those into the net that won't be wearing any tech?
I'm wondering if and this is going to sound like it's coming from left field, but I'm wondering if a lot of this solar radiation management they're doing or chemtrailing has anything to do with this. I mean,
wondered that myself.
Yeah, I haven't looked that much into the correlation between the two, and several people have written me saying, well, you need to look at the micro nanotech. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Oh, these little robots that are falling from the sky and creating webs on the plants and things like that. Like I said, I haven't really looked into it, so I don't really want to speak on that right now. But I would like to find electron microscope images of this nanotech.
Yes.
To see exactly what it looks like, and then try and find out exactly how it operates once it gets into the body. Can it be triggered by frequency? Can it be triggered by a radio signal? Can it be triggered by, again, going back to frequency, something by HARP, which can affect larger areas?
Or in conjunction with something chemical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Water supply, food supply, whatever,
Mm-hmm. Well, fluoride's a heavy metal.
There you go.
That's in most of the water supplies.
Mm-hmm.
And it also happens to be a byproduct of aluminum manufacturing, which is the stuff that's coming down from the sky in the solar radiation management. I mean, they're dumping gigatons.
Oh yeah, and they by the way, folks, we get most of it from China, and they don't check for acid or any other kind of contamination in that stuff. They sell it by the super tanker full to us, and we just keep doing it. And I just saw a study a few days ago that said there's no dental benefit in any way, shape, or form of drinking fluoride in your water. These people are insane. So, I mean, it didn't say they're insane. I added that part, but. Well, DJ, you've been extraordinarily gracious with your time, as you have been on 2 other occasions. It's a pleasure to speak with you always, even though the subject matter is a wee little bit disturbing. But I don't want to leave any gold on the table. So have you told us everything that you've got for this round? No, probably not.
I want to emphasize this, and that goes to, in certain embodiments of this tech, the method is utilized to cause individual, the method can be utilized to cause the individual, and we spoke about this before, of less hungry, less thirsty, less anxious, less depressed. But I would like to say, or as I previously mentioned, it can also be used to cause the exact opposite. And to what end is served by making a person or a population who are starving feel not hungry, or a population in a region with no access to water feel not thirsty?
Well,
I mean, the proponents of global dominance, of the one world order, of mastering the human domain and the technology that'll be used to accomplish this agenda, they're not benevolent. They haven't shown themselves to be and never will, because they are not. So my question is, will this technology be used to euthanize individuals or entire population-centric regions? I don't know the answer, and we can all speculate, but one thing's for sure. This tech has the capability to identify, target, and eliminate people on many levels. Once you have the control of somebody's mind, the neurological synapses in the brain that trigger pain, that trigger survival or instinctual responses to the environment, that can read your thoughts. What are you at that point? I mean, what are you?
Just what you said before, inventory.
Inventory, exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, look, in as much as we can, we support and we'll back you on whatever level we can. And if we can't, we'll figure out a way to do it, and then we'll back you on the unknown level. And again, if you'll stay with us for a couple of seconds after we wrap up here, I would like to speak with you offline for a moment.
Okay.
All right. Very good. DJ, thank you.
Oh,
You scared the hell out of everybody, but thank you.
No, I don't want to scare people. This is the time. I don't want to be part of the problem. All right?
No, you're not part of the problem.
This is what they're doing. All despotic governments on the planet throughout history have done this. They have kept their populations under control, cowering to totalitarian authority by keeping the population in fear of an attack from an outside person, in fear of a viral outbreak, in fear of terrorism. This is how they work. I'm not trying to work that way. I'm trying to, I don't know.
I was not attempting in any way, and I was not alluding that you're mongering fear. Let me tell you, fear is a good thing. Fear is like pain. Fear is a warning. Fear is really good. I wonder if, if they were to put that into somebody's head, that have no fear about anything whatsoever, nothing whatsoever. Go ahead, take a shot at it. Go ahead and see if your skateboard will protect you if you jump off of the 5th floor. Don't worry about it. I don't think that's a good thing either. I mean, a guy tried it from the 2nd floor. It didn't work out very well. He broke his leg. It's all over the net still. Now, there are several different kinds of fear. There's irrational fear, and then there's rational fear.
Okay.
And I call rational fear. There are some other words that are synonymous with that. That's heightened awareness of an impending and very real and present danger, and that is what you have brought. You haven't just brought some some irrational dread and fear of something. These people are plotting against us, folks. You see this. And the beautiful thing about it is, the beautiful part of this is that now they know that we know. And we are not afraid of them. The only thing that you really have the unknown is the thing that everybody is the most afraid of. What's it going to be? What form is it going to take? Is it going to hurt us? And when it does, is it going to hurt? Everybody wants to know the answer to those questions, but that's primitivia. Those are primal questions. You fought for your first breath. You'll fight for your last one too. But in the meantime, you fight for human freedom. Of all the things that can be fought over, I would submit to you that is probably the most worthy of a good fight, a righteous fight. All right? Our Creator didn't put us here to be slaves.
No.
Oh, Wells, the Creator's mind? Pretty sure that I know that much. No, I don't know the Creator's mind, but I see evidence of freedom everywhere, throughout Scripture, throughout human conduct. It's only when people decide to twist it and bend it and pervert it into something else that you have problems. That's it. As long as you follow the rules, and they're very simple to follow, it's basically don't take advantage of your fellow humans. Just don't do it. Don't harm them. Don't cause any harm. The Hippocratic Oath, rule number 1: do no harm. That's it. So, DJ, I got a feeling that it's going to get even more interesting as the months go by. As this, you had said before, you think Jade Helm's probably already running, so we're about a week off from the official kickoff, and it'll go for 2 months. So let's just see what happens. Let's plan to get back together again as things get ever more interesting. And in the meantime, everybody, exercise caution in your daily affairs now more than ever. You might even be thinking about a tinfoil sombrero. Just kidding. Keep those eyes up always. Make ready for what's to come. Because I'm telling you, and you know it, it's coming. Be seeing you.